Okay, welcome to the deep dive. You've brought us a fascinating stack of sources today.
Yeah, focusing on Agile Business Analysis.
Right, and looking at it through kind of the lens of interview questions, which I think is a really practical way in.
It is, isn't it? It grounds the theory in, well, how you actually talk about it and apply it.
Absolutely. So our mission here, as always, is to, cut through the noise a bit. We'll unpack these sources, pull out the key nuggets, and give you that shortcut to getting well informed on this.
Whether you're exploring the field, maybe prepping for an interview,
Or just curious how these agile businesses really tick.
and it's super relevant. I mean, in today's business world, being agile,
Yeah.
it's not just jargon, is it? It's pretty essential.
Definitely. And the business analyst, the BA role within that seems absolutely crucial.
Central, yeah.
So let's get into it. Foundational stuff first.
Mm.
What exactly is Agile, fundamentally, and how does the BA role change within it?
Okay, so think of Agile less as a rigid process and more like a philosophy, a mindset almost, compared to traditional models like, say, waterfall, where you plan everything meticulously up front.
Right, the big design document phase.
Exactly. Agile embraces flexibility. It's about working in short cycles, getting feedback constantly, collaborating closely, and delivering value iteratively. Continuous improvement is key.
So build a bit, check it, learn, adjust, build the next bit. Much more dynamic.
Precisely. And the business analyst in this world, they're vital, not just a messenger passing requirements along.
So what do they do?
They become this crucial bridge. They're constantly connecting the business folks, the technical team, the end users, making sure everyone's aligned on the what and the why.
Always linking it back to the bigger goals.
Always. It's about ensuring the work serves the organization's objectives.
Okay, so day to day, what does that look like? What are the typical responsibilities highlighted?
It's pretty broad and very active. They're analyzing processes, looking for ways to improve things, proposing solutions.
So identifying problems and opportunities.
Yes, and diving into data sometimes to back that up. Designing ways to get good user feedback is huge too. Really understanding those needs.
And managing people, sounds like.
Oh, definitely. A lot of negotiation, stakeholder management, navigating different priorities, keeping everyone moving forward together.
So it's less about writing one giant spec document up front and more about ongoing analysis, dialogue, driving things forward.
That's a great way to put it. Driving progress, delivering value continuously.
Now, something your sources clarify, which often trips people up, is the difference between a business analyst and a data analyst. How do they break that down?
Yeah, that's a common confusion. The core difference is really their primary focus and their main objective,
Okay.
a data analyst. Their world is the data itself. Collecting it, cleaning it, building models, analyzing huge data sets to spot trends, patterns.
They're looking for insights hidden in the numbers.
Exactly. They use tools like SQL, Python, Tableau, R. Their goal is to inform decisions using that data. They answer the "what does the data tell us" question.
On the business analyst.
The BA is focused more on the business process and the stakeholder needs. How does the business operate? What do the users need?
So workflow requirements.
Right. Gathering requirements through conversations, mapping processes using things like BPMN, identifying operational improvements. Their aim is to align those processes and systems with the business strategy and what people actually need.
More qualitative, maybe? Process-oriented?
Often, yes. Though they might use data, their core approach is understanding the how and why of the business to make it work better. They use tools like JIRA for tracking, maybe some UML. It's process and people-centric versus data-centric.
That's a really clear distinction. Less, what does the data say? More, how does this work? And how can we improve it for everyone?
You've got it. Both incredibly valuable roles, but different lenses, different objectives.
Makes sense. Okay, zooming back out then, why are so many companies going agile? What are the big benefits, especially for the BA?
The main driver is usually the need to respond to change faster. Markets shift, requirements evolve. Agile lets you adapt.
Instead of being locked into an old plan.
Right. And that continuous feedback loop. It means you're building something users actually want, which generally leads to higher quality. Plus, it encourages real collaboration across different teams, breaking down those silos.
Which must boost morale and engagement too, I'd imagine.
Often, yeah.
Yeah.
And for the BA specifically, well, that enhanced collaboration is huge. You're right there in the team.
Not on the outside looking in.
Exactly. The feedback loop helps you learn fast. You get more flexibility to tweak requirements as you learn more. Prioritization becomes sharper, more value-driven. And interestingly, Estimates tend to get more accurate over time because you're doing it in smaller cycles.
Okay, let's shift to techniques. What are some of the key Agile BA techniques that jump out from the sources?
Several come up consistently. Backlog refinement is a big one.
What's that involve?
It's the ongoing process of reviewing the list of upcoming work backlog, clarifying items, adding detail, estimating, prioritizing. It's not static. It's constantly being groomed by the team.
Keeping the work pipeline clear and ready.
Yep. Then there's user story mapping. Really powerful.
How does that work?
It helps visualize the whole user journey. You arrange user stories, those short descriptions of features, from a user's view to tell a narrative. It keeps the focus firmly on the customer's experience and value.
And speaking of the user, personas are important too, right?
Absolutely essential. Personas are these, well, detailed fictional profiles of your typical users.
Like Marketing Mary or Developer Dave.
Sort of, yeah, but with more depth. Their goals, frustrations, background, creating them helps the whole team empathize, really understand who they're building for. It shapes everything.
Beyond the techniques, what about core competencies? What does it really take to be a good Agile BA?
Communication and negotiation skills are right at the top. You're constantly talking to different groups, often with conflicting views.
Juggling priorities.
Constantly. Strong analytical thinking, problem solving.
Yeah.
Those are table stakes. You're dissecting complex stuff. Decision making, too. You need to help guide things.
And knowing the business itself, presumably.
Oh, definitely. Industry knowledge, understanding business processes, that's crucial. And while you don't always need to be a coder, some technical proficiency is increasingly valuable.
Like understanding databases, maybe BI tools.
Yeah, knowing how systems talk to each other, basic SQL perhaps, it just helps bridge that gap with the technical team even better.
You mentioned prioritization earlier. Any specific frameworks the sources highlight for that or for analysis?
Moscow comes up a lot for prioritizing requirements.
Moscow.
Yeah, I mean, MSCW stands for must have, should have, could have, and would have. It's a way to categorize features based on necessity.
Simple but effective for focus.
It can be. And for broader strategic analysis, SWOT is still relevant.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats.
Right. Helps the BA assess the bigger picture, where the organization stands, potential risks, where to focus efforts strategically.
We touched on the waterfall versus agile shift for the BA. Can you dig into that transformation a bit more? How does it feel different in the role?
It's a pretty profound shift. In traditional waterfall, the BA often felt a bit like an intermediary. You'd spend ages gathering requirements, writing the big spec doc.
Then throw it over the wall to development.
Kind of, yeah. You acted more as a formal liaison, a translator. In Agile, you're part of the team, embedded.
So much closer collaboration.
Day to day. You're constantly talking with developers, testers, the product owners, stakeholders. You're involved in shaping the solution iteratively, getting feedback, refining. You're not just translating a document, you're actively driving understanding and value creation within the team.
Sounds way more interactive. And you mentioned Scrum before. Quick clarification. How does Scrum relate to Agile? People mix them up.
Super common confusion. Think of it like this. Agile is the big umbrella, the philosophy, flexibility, iteration, collaboration, customer value.
The overall approach.
Right. Scrum is a specific framework for implementing Agile. It gives you concrete roles like product owner, Scrum Master, the development team. It gives you specific events, sprints, daily stand-ups, reviews, retrospectives, and artifacts like the backlog.
So Scrum is one popular recipe for being agile.
Exactly. There are others, like Kanban, but Scrum is probably the most widely used framework.
Okay, that helps. Now, project life cycles. Even in Agile, projects still have phases, right? The sources mention the typical ones.
Yeah, the fundamental stages are still there, generally. Yeah. You've got initiation, the idea phase, planning, figuring out the approach, execution, doing the work, monitoring and controlling, keeping it on track, and closure.
The difference is how you cycle through them.
Precisely. In Agile, you might go through mini cycles of planning, executing, and monitoring within each sprint, delivering increments, rather than one long phase for each stage.
Given that faster pace, how does a BA ensure everyone's collaborating effectively, both the internal team and the external stakeholders?
With the team, it boils down to constant, clear communication, making sure stories are understood, participating actively, being flexible, helping remove blockers quickly.
Being readily available?
Yes. For stakeholders, involvement is key, especially because things move fast. You need their input early and often, especially for planning and prioritizing.
So they don't just show up at the end.
Absolutely not. Transparency is huge. Show them the progress regularly, give them easy ways to see the work, and give feedback. Keep them engaged. It manages expectations much better.
And that helps with that distinction you mentioned earlier, requirements versus needs. Can you unpack that again?
Yeah, it's subtle but important. A need is the high-level goal or problem, like I need transportation.
Okay, broad.
Right. A requirement is the specific thing needed to satisfy that need. Like
Great.
the vehicle must have 4 wheels, it needs to seat 5 people, it must have air conditioning.
The specific features or capabilities.
Exactly. Requirements are the detailed, testable conditions that fulfill the underlying need. The BA's job is often translating those broad needs into those specific, actionable requirements the team can build and test against. Got it. Needs are the why, requirements are the what and how. Okay, let's level up a bit. Mid-level advanced concepts. Invest criteria for user stories. What's that acronym about?
Invest is a really useful checklist for writing good user stories or backlog items. Make sure they're well formed.
Okay, break it down.
Independent can be worked on separately. Negotiable, it's a starting point for conversation, not a fixed contract. Valuable delivers clear value to the user or business. Estimable, the team can roughly size the effort. Sized, appropriately small enough to fit in a sprint, usually. And testable, you can define clear acceptance criteria.
So a quick check for story health. Good stuff. And the BA's role in agile ceremonies like sprint planning or retrospectives.
Oh, very active. In sprint planning, they're often working right alongside the product owner, clarifying stories for the team, helping break down bigger items, making sure everyone understands the why behind the work being pulled into the sprint.
Facilitating understanding. Yes. And in retrospectives, they're participating, sometimes even leading the discussion on what went well, what didn't, and generating ideas for how the team can improve its process next time, encouraging that feedback.
Prioritizing those user stories must be tough with competing demands. How is that typically handled?
It's definitely a balancing act. The BA plays a key role in providing the analysis to inform prioritization, which is usually owned by the product owner.
What kind of analysis?
Looking at the business value of each item, gathering stakeholder input, who needs what most urgently, maybe doing some ROI analysis, considering dependencies, risks, impact. It's a collaborative discussion fueled by the BA's insights.
And collaboration with the tech team specifically, how does that look?
It's constant dialogue, clear communication about requirements, obviously, but also regular check-ins, joint problem-solving when technical hurdles pop up. The BA helps the tech team grasp the business context, the why.
And the tech team helps the BA understand what's feasible, the how.
Exactly. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Sharing knowledge, building that shared understanding.
Your sources also laid out almost a mini framework for how a BA might approach their own work on a project.
Yeah, it's a sensible flow. First, really clarify your role and what's expected. Then, lock down the objectives, making sure stakeholders are aligned. Plan out your BA activities. Then dig into defining requirements collaboratively.
Then the ongoing technical collaboration we just talked about.
Right. Plus, preparing any needed documentation or training. And critically, assessing if the project actually delivered the intended value and figuring out next steps.
Agile transformations can be bumpy. How does the BA help manage that inevitable resistance to change?
That's a huge part of the role, actually. Open communication is number one, explaining the why behind the change, addressing fears head on.
Getting people involved?
Crucial. Involve stakeholders early, give them a voice. Education and training on Agile itself helps demystify it. Showcasing early wins and benefits builds momentum.
Proving it works.
Yes. And maintaining that feedback loop, creating a supportive environment where it's okay to struggle a bit initially. It's about guiding people through the transition.
And Agile doesn't just stay contained within IT, right? It often ripples out into the wider business.
It often does. You start seeing a stronger focus on the customer across the board, a real customer-centric approach. It can foster a more collaborative culture generally, breaking down old silos.
And that focus on iteration.
Leads to a culture of continuous improvement, not just for products, but for business processes too. And fundamentally, it makes the whole organization more adaptable.
Getting back to practical tools, Agile estimation, what techniques came up?
Planning poker is a classic. The team uses cards with numbers usually related to complexity or effort to vote on stories. It forces discussion until consensus emerges.
Gets everyone's input.
Yeah. Another one mentioned is the bucket system, sorting items into predefined buckets of different sizes, like small, medium, large. A bit quicker, maybe less precise sometimes. Both focus on team-based estimation.
And diagrams. BAs love diagrams. What are the common ones in Agile contexts?
Still very important for visualization. Flowcharts for process steps. activity diagrams showing workflow across different actors, use case diagrams for system functionality from a user view.
Sequence diagrams, too.
Yep. Sequence diagrams are great for showing how objects interact over time. Collaboration diagrams show relationships. They all help clarify complexity, spot gaps, make sure everyone understands the same thing. They really influence direction.
What about quality and testing, specifically user acceptance testing, UAT? How does the BA drive that?
It starts way before the actual testing. Thorough planning with stakeholders, defining what done means, what the acceptance criteria are, writing test scenarios based on the user stories.
Then facilitating the testing itself.
Right, often facilitating those sessions with real users, documenting the outcomes meticulously, ensuring feedback is captured and, crucially, acted upon to refine the product. It's an ongoing quality focus, not just a final check.
Influencing stakeholders, especially tricky ones, is always a challenge. Any insights there?
It comes down to understanding their world. What are their priorities, their concerns, their definition of success? You need to find the common ground, aligned with the bigger objectives.
And lots of communication.
Constant, transparent communication. Keep them in the loop. Explain your thinking. The sources highlighted the STAR method for demonstrating how you've handled situations like this in the past.
Right. Situation, task, action, result. Like that example of the stakeholder resisting scope change. The BA used empathy, found shared goals.
Communicated clearly, show the benefit, and got them on board. Being able to articulate how you navigate those tricky situations is key.
Last, technical point sizing stories for sprints. Making sure they're small enough.
Yeah, that's vital for flow. It means breaking down big, complex epics or features into smaller, manageable chunks that can actually be finished within a sprint.
Team effort again.
Always. Engaging the whole team in estimation, using techniques like planning poker, looking at past performance velocity helps too. And those regular backlog refinement sessions are where a lot of this splitting and sizing happens. It's iterative.
Wow, okay. We have covered a ton of ground. From the basics of Agile and the BA role shift, through techniques, competencies, challenges, all the way to advanced concepts. What's the future look like for the Agile BA based on these sources?
The trend seems clear. The role is becoming even more strategic, more sophisticated. It's not just about process anymore.
Oh, so?
There's a growing expectation for BAs to have a deeper understanding of the customer, the market dynamics, the whole business context, and to leverage data analytics and emerging tech more effectively within their analysis.
So adding data literacy and tech awareness onto the core BA skills.
Exactly. Key traits are going to be things like innovation, adaptability, continuous learning, really embracing that agility personally. The prediction is they'll play a bigger role in strategic decision-making.
Using their insights to actually influence where the business goes.
Precisely. Moving from supporting project execution to actively shaping business strategy and finding new value streams.
That's a significant evolution.
It really is. Seems like a clear direction based on this material.
Well, that was definitely a deep dive. We've really unpacked the dynamic nature of Agile, the multifaceted BA role within it, the skills, the tools, the constant need for adaptation and collaboration.
Yeah, understanding these concepts feels pretty essential for anyone working in or interacting with Agile teams today. It gives you a solid framework.
It really does. Paints a picture of a demanding but potentially very impactful role.
Hopefully this gives you a strong grasp of the key ideas pulled straight from the sources we looked at.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for you to ponder, building on that evolution piece. If the Agile BA is becoming more strategic, more data savvy, more involved in innovation, how might they start to not just respond to change, but actively drive it in completely new ways? What kind of future problems might they tackle, or what entirely new skills might become essential for proactively shaping what comes next in business? Something to think about.